everyone, calm down, chillax. Everything's going to be okay because as Gene Wilder once said, we are the music makers, we are the dreamer of dreams. And that intro couldn't be more apt for Tom and I's guest today, the founder of Drupal himself, Dries. Welcome to the open source.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Nice to see you, Dries. I'm so impressed with James's intros every week. You never know what you're going to get. And that one was straight from left field. So well done, James.
Thanks very much.
That was good.
Thank you for doing this. And for those that don't know you, could you give us a little overview about yourself?
Sure. My name is Dries. Born and raised in Belgium. Probably most well known, I guess, for being the founder of the Drupal open source project. Started Drupal 20-ish years ago. Been the project lead all that time. And then co-founded Acquia, and I'm the chief technology officer at Acquia, which is a company built around Drupal.
That's what people know you for kind of professionally, Dries. But just to kick us off in a slightly different direction, what's your thing outside of work and outside of Drupal and outside of coding?
There's a lot of things. I'm a dad, so there's that. Taking care of the boys. Years ago, I got into gin. Gin and tonic. I probably have a collection of 40, 50 gins.
Wow.
Yeah. I love to play tennis. I love to hike and camp. I love a lot of different things. I love photography. I guess I have a variety of different interests,
Well, the one that caught my attention was the gin. I wouldn't say I'm as avid a collector as you, but what's your favorite gin then? Have you narrowed it down to one or?
No, that's really hard. It just really depends on the mood, I guess, But one of the things that I love is I ended up creating this like gin exchange program. And so the cool thing about gins, as you may know, is that they're very local often. There's a lot of local distilleries. And so over the years, as I travel, I've exchanged bottles of gin. And so I guess my go-to is gin mare. Gin mare? It's actually a Spanish gin. I think it got quite popular now. But
yeah,
it's made in Spain and it's based on olives, actually, believe it or not. So it has an olive flavor to it, yeah.
I can also imagine that you're pretty good at tennis because I've got a confession to make.
All right.
I've got a confession and it's been eating me up inside. We have met before at an event, but it didn't go so well because
really?
Do you mind disclosing how tall you are?
I'm 6'5". What event did we meet at, James?
We met at a kickoff event. I'm not completely going to disclose what one, but I'm right. I'm 5'5". So effectively, we were in different atmospheres. And my confession to you is that I was with a few people who are of my height, short people, and we agreed to meet back at you so that we could find out where we were in the event.
So you used the street as a landmark. Is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's my confession. And now it's out. I feel much better. I hope.
All right, good.
I hope you're okay.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I was of value,
We've got some serious questions for you and some fun ones, Dries. So we'll kick off with a serious one to get the ball rolling. I listened to your recent Dries note, and you talked about many organizations having to do more with less, yet they're all trying to accelerate their digital transformation. A big thing, especially during these pandemic times. Do you think that Drupal and open source is more relevant these days because of that movement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in times like this, where there is a financial crisis or a lot of, financial stress on organizations, they're forced to do more with less, like you said, right? Or budgets are being cut on the one hand. On the other hand, they also have to accelerate their digital transformation. So how do you do that with less budgets? And the thing is, open source really thrives in those environments. And we've seen that historically. We've seen that going back to 2001, when Linux really took off in sort of the .com crash and the years after, when there was a lot of financial stress. And we saw it again in 2008. Drupal, for example, really took off. And again, it was driven by organizations going through a lot of change and asking themselves, does it make sense to keep paying these, very steep fees? And is it safe to bet our future on proprietary software? What happens to us when the company or vendor or proprietary vendor goes out of business in times like this? So it's a combination of lower cost and sort of taking control of your own destiny too. And I think these are two important forces. And my guess is we'll see exactly the same thing happen, coming out of the current pandemic. I think it's generally a good thing for open source. So it's kind of a silver lining, I guess, in everything that's going on right now in the world. But I think the big change also compared to 2001 and 2008 is that open source has really matured. I mean, I remember in 2001, people made fun of Linux and nobody believed it was enterprise ready. And so fast forward to today, I don't think there's anyone in the world that questions the enterprise readiness of open source. Open source actually has become the de facto standard. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but I think open source will grow bigger and stronger. I think open source is very safe in this recession.
You've also talked in the past about, this concept of the open web as well. Maybe for our viewers and listeners, could you explain what you mean by the open web?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good sort of definition, but for me, the open web is a web that is built on open standards, that is respectful of people's privacy and data, that allows people to be creative as well and express themselves and take control of their online presence, including their data. And I put that in contrast with the closed web or the walled gardens like Facebook and Twitter and others, where, everybody's Facebook page looks identical. There is very little creativity in having a Facebook page, right? There's also very little control that you have over how Facebook uses your data. And so for me, the open web is sort of the opposite of these walled gardens, and I'm very passionate about the open web. I've been advocating for the open web for many years. I want to help build sort of a future that I want for myself and my kids, which is an open web future. I don't want a handful or a dozen of very large technology giants to control the web, to own all the data on the web and kind of suck out all of the creativity and the fun things. Maybe there's a little bit of nostalgia as well, because I do remember the early days of the web and it was a lot of fun. I feel like it's important to the future of the web that it remains open and independent. So then as a little follow-up question, if you were, Doc and Marty, and you were just about to jump in the DeLorean and fast forward to 2050, what impact does, a more open web have on society? How do people interact with the internet 30 years from now? Well, it's a big question. I think it's a web where nobody's really in charge, right? It's a distributed web. I think one of the challenges that we have today is these big technology companies controlling or having an outsized influence on society. For example, Google, can skew election results just by changing the results that they return for search queries. They can sort of manipulate, if you will, the global mindset. So for me, an open web in the future would also be one that's more transparent or has been vetted more to make sure that these biases and, don't exist in these algorithms. So hopefully the open web will win, I think right now, it's questionable what will happen to the open web, but I think we have to keep fighting the good fight.
So this is a non-serious question now. I've got some ideas. Me and Tom often talk about business ideas, to try and get some financial freedom.
And then just to preface this, right, and to give you an insight into the inner workings of our mind, over the summer, I built a beer crate bar a pallet bar in my garden. We went from having, a bar with a keg and a beer tap in the garden to all of a sudden, building a website to host a virtual beer festival. needless to say, the idea hasn't got off the ground, but just to set you up and give you the kind of insight into what we're going to talk about now.
Are you aware of the show The Dragon's Den?
Like Shark Tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've seen it. Yes, I know what that is.
So I've got some ideas that might enhance your Drupal community.
All
And
right.
you can either respond by saying, yes, I'll invest, or you can say, you're an idiot. Okay.
All right.
Right. Idea number one. I'm a bit worried about saying this. So my idea number one is called Be My Drupal. Online dating for Drupalists with a catch. They can only use code in their profile and images of their site as their profile picture.
I love that idea.
Yeah, invest.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Right, there we go. I'm off to a good start. Here we go. My second idea is siemesta, which is an afternoon nap taken in unison by the Drupal community. Sleep encourages creativity, etc.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, I was struggling with that one.
I think people should nap when they want to.
And then finally, so in your recent Dries note, you spoke about diversity and inclusion, and this got me thinking of Drupal's Drag Race, a take on RuPaul's Drag Race. So I thought drag queens who code. What do you think about that?
If it helps improve diversity and inclusion, I'll say invest.
Excellent.
But I'm not an expert on these shows, so I assume it's a good thing. So I'll say invest.
Excellent. 2 out of 3, Tom.
You did well. You did a lot better than I thought. That's all I'm going to say.
It's just got 2 businesses if to get going.
Yeah, I know. You're going to be a busy guy.
Before we close and wrap up, what's next for you? What's happening in 2021 for you? Do you know?
2021.
Drupal 10?
Yeah, Drupal. Well, we're going to keep working on Drupal 10. Drupal 10 will be released in 2022, actually. But obviously, we have to do most of the development next year. Acquia is keeping me quite busy too. We have an aggressive roadmap and, building out a whole slew of products actually at Acquia. That's keeping me pretty busy. But yeah, work.
Yeah, excellent.
And then coming up before the end of the year, so I heard you're speaking at Web Summit, right?
Yeah, that is. When is that? In a couple of months or so, before the end of the year.
Beginning of December, I think, first week. And then I think the week after that, you're also speaking at DrupalCon Europe then. So they're back to back, I believe.
Yeah, I will be busy, yeah. These are 2 big conferences for us. Obviously, Web Summit, it's very big. But I set up a panel, and actually we'll be talking about the open web, and invited Matt Mullenweg, the founder of WordPress, to the panel, and Mitchell Baker, the founder and CEO of Mozilla. And then DrupalCon, obviously, it's one of our largest events. We have an annual DrupalCon in Europe, and we also have an annual DrupalCon in the US, but this is our European DrupalCon, although with these events going virtual, it kind of blurs the lines in a good way, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the future of Drupal and what we're working on, and what people should expect in future versions, both minor releases of Drupal 9, but also what is going to be part of Drupal 10. Come check it out.
Fantastic. And then do you ever take time off? Because I feel like you're just this machine that works 24 hours a day. Are you going to take a break at the end of the year as well, over the holidays?
I will, yeah. I do work a lot. I haven't actually taken much time off this year because of COVID-19. I took a week off in the summer, and that's it. But planning to take maybe 2 weeks off around Christmas and New Year's. Usually I fly from the US to Belgium, celebrate Christmas with my family and celebrate New Year's with friends and family. And you know how it is, Christmas and New Year's.
I used to live in the US too. So coming home back to the UK for Christmas was always like this mad rush of trying to see 27 million people in 2 weeks.
I mean, it's always nice from a people point of view, but it's never relaxing.
No.
So where does it better? Christmas in the US or Christmas in Europe, or the holiday season and holidays in Europe?
I will say that the US does Christmas well in terms of creating the atmosphere.
Right.
And especially in Boston, there can be snow. In Belgium, it's a lot less likely to snow. It's probably more likely to rain and be miserable. People do an amazing job decorating for Christmas and really get you in the atmosphere in a way that isn't always the same here, at least not in Belgium. I think in London it's probably better.
In London, it's okay, but it's not like in the US where it's like Home Alone, that sort of real magical feeling.
Yeah.
Well, I absolutely loved our time together today, Dries. Unfortunately, I think it's time to wrap up. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been fantastic to spend some time with you.
Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me.
In a couple of months' time, Dries, we'll maybe come back to you and we can do like an end of year wrap up or something like that, and
Sure.
how everything went.
No, this was easy. I loved it. No prep, easy questions, laughs. Sign me up for round 2.